The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 5,700 ships appeared simultaneously in 7 different star systems. Each system contained a Devourer command node, identified by Dr. Yuna's research. The plan was simple in concept, but terrifyingly complex in execution. Strike all 7 nodes at once, overwhelming the Devourer response capability. Captain Su-Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her tactical displays light up with enemy contacts. Her target was the primary nexus in the Kelthar system. Intelligence suggested this was the central coordination point for the entire Devourer fleet. If they could destroy it, the enemy would lose the ability to organize large-scale operations. Enemy contacts increasing, her tactical officer reported. We have 300 Devourer vessels on intercept courses, more appearing every second. All ships weapons-free, Su-Jin ordered. Execute assault pattern Alpha. Stay tight, stay focused, punch through to the Nexus. The Indomitable lurched forward, its engines burning at maximum. Around it, 40 other ships from the assault group followed. Human vessels mixed with council ships from a dozen species. They had trained together for months, learning each other's tactics and capabilities. Now that training would be tested, Devourer ships were unlike anything in council space. Organic and mechanical fused together in designs that made no aesthetic sense. They moved in swarms, attacking with weapons that stripped matter at the molecular level. Council ships had learned to fear them, but human crews had spent months studying Devourer tactics looking for weaknesses. Enemy firing, the weapons officer called out. Brace for impact. The Indomitable's shields flared as Devourer weapons struck. The ship shuddered but held. Su-Jin had personally overseen the shield upgrades using human adaptive technology that the Council had been skeptical of. Now it was proving its worth. Return fire. All batteries, she ordered. Target their coordination vessels, the big ones in the center of their formation. Human railguns opened up, firing projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Devourers were used to energy weapons. They had not faced kinetic weapons with this much force behind them. The first Devourer ship exploded, torn apart by the sheer impact. Across the system, Admiral Jinwoo coordinated the battle from his command ship. Displays showed all 7 systems simultaneously. The assault groups were making progress, but at terrible cost. Already dozens of ships showed red on his tactical map, destroyed or too damaged to continue. System 4 is taking heavy losses, an aide reported. They are requesting reinforcements. Negative, Jinwoo said, his voice hard. All groups maintain their assault. No one pulls back. We knew the cost going in. On the ground assault team's transport, Commander Sung-ho checked his equipment one final time. His team consisted of human marines and volunteers from 20 council species. Their job was the most dangerous of all. Once the fleet penetrated to the Nexus, they would board it and plant demolition charges from the inside. 2 minutes to drop, the pilot called back. Enemy anti-ship fire is intense. We might not make it. Then we jump early, Sung-ho replied calmly. Marines, prepare for combat insertion. The transport shook violently as Devourer weapons tore into its hull. Alarm screamed. The lights flickered. Sung-ho grabbed a handhold and looked at his team. Human faces mixed with alien ones, all showing the same mixture of fear and determination. Go, 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 he shouted as the rear hatch blew open. They jumped into the void, using personal thrusters to cross the remaining distance to the Devourer Nexus. It was massive, a structure 10 kilometers across, pulsing with organic light. Devourer defenders swarmed around it, but the fleet's assault had drawn most of them away. Half of Sung-ho's team died in the crossing. Devourer point defense weapons picked them off one by one, but enough made it through. They crashed into the Nexus hull and began cutting their way inside. On the Indomitable, things were getting desperate. Su-Jin's ship had penetrated deep into the Devourer formation, but the cost had been horrific. Half her escort vessels were gone. Her own ship was badly damaged. Fires burned on 3 decks. Life support was failing in sections of the vessel. Captain, we are losing engine power, her chief engineer reported. We can give you maybe 10 more minutes of combat thrust. Then make them count, Su-Jin said. She looked at her tactical display. The Nexus was just ahead, so close, but between them and it stood dozens of Devourer ships. All weapons continuous fire. Ram anything that gets in our way, we are going through. The Indomitable surged forward one last time. Its weapons blazed, tearing into Devourer vessels. When an enemy ship blocked their path, Su-Jin did not hesitate. She rammed it, using the Indomitable's armored hull as a weapon. The collision nearly tore her ship apart, but they broke through. Inside the Nexus, Sung Ho and his team fought through corridors of living metal and pulsing flesh. The Devourers defended every meter with mechanical soldiers and organic weapons. His team planted charges as they advanced, leaving a trail of explosives behind them. "How much time?" he asked his demolitions expert, a human named Tai Hyun. "3 more charges to place. Then we need to be 5 kilometers away before detonation." "We will not make it back to the transports," Sung Ho said, looking around at his survivors. Of the 60 who had started, only 15 remained. "Plant the charges. We will find another way out." Back at the Council Command Station, Tae-sung watched the battle unfold on massive displays. Captain Hana stood beside him, her hand gripping his shoulder as they watched ships die. Every red blip on the screen was a vessel destroyed. Every red blip represented hundreds of crew members who would never go home. "System 7 has reached their nexus," an aide reported. "They are beginning demolition operations." "System 2 has been forced to withdraw," another voice called out. Too much resistance. They could not break through. Tae-sung felt sick. 2,000 ships had been committed to System 2. Less than half were withdrawing. The rest were gone. Over 100,000 people had died trying to reach that nexus, and they had failed. Systems 1, 4, and 6 reporting successful demolition, the tactical coordinator announced. "Nexus structures collapsing. Enemy coordination in those systems is breaking down." On the Indomitable, Soo-jin watched her bridge crew work frantically to keep the ship functional. They were alongside the Nexus now. Sung Ho's team was inside, but Devourer reinforcements were arriving. Hundreds of enemy ships converging on their position. "We cannot hold them off," her tactical officer said. "We need to withdraw." "Negative," Soo-jin said firmly. "Commander Sung Ho's team is still inside. We do not leave people behind. Captain, we will be destroyed." "Then we will be destroyed doing our duty," she replied. All remaining ships formed defensive sphere around the Nexus. By the ground team time, the surviving ships of her assault group moved into position. 32 vessels, all damaged, all low on ammunition. They faced a Devourer force 10 times their number. It should have been suicide, but they held their ground. Inside the Nexus, Sung Ho placed the final charge. Tae-hyun was already dead, killed by a Devourer defender. Half the remaining team was wounded. But the explosives were in place. "This is ground team to Indomitable," Sung Ho spoke into his communicator. "Charges are set. Beginning withdrawal." "Negative, Commander." Soo-jin's voice came back, filled with static. "Too many Devourers between you and us. You will not make it." Sung Ho looked at his team. They knew what that meant. "Can you detonate the charges remotely?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Once we are clear of the Nexus interior, then we move fast. Team on me. We fight our way to the outer hull and jump. Maybe the fleet can pick us up before the Devourers get us." They ran, through corridors that seemed to close behind them, past defenders that tore at them with weapons designed to shred armor and flesh. 2 more team members fell. Then 3 more, but they reached the outer hull. Sung Ho blew the emergency hatch and they jumped into space. Behind them, Tae-hyun's carefully placed charges detonated. The explosion rippled through the Nexus, tearing it apart from the inside. The massive structure collapsed, pulled in on itself by gravitational forces unleashed by the demolition. The Indomitable moved in, its tractor's beams grabbing the floating Marines. Soo-jin counted them as they came aboard. 8 survivors from a team of 60. Commander Sung Ho was among them, unconscious but alive. "All teams withdraw." Admiral Jin Woo's voice came over the fleet channel. "Mission accomplished. Return to rally points." Tae-sung watched the tactical displays as the fleet began its withdrawal. Of the 5,700 ships that had begun the assault, less than 3,000 remained. The casualties were staggering. Over 2 million crew members dead or missing. But 5 of the 7 Nexus structures had been destroyed. Across the galaxy, Devourer forces began to lose coordination. Without the command nodes, they reverted to simple swarm behavior. Council defenders found that enemies who had been impossibly coordinated now made mistakes, left openings, failed to support each other properly. "It worked," Captain Hana said quietly. "By all the stars, it actually worked." Tae-sung nodded, unable to speak. Relief and grief warred in his chest. They had won. The Devourers were in disarray. The 12 systems could be held. but the cost had been so high. 3 months had passed since the vote. Tae-sung stood on the observation deck of the Council Military Coordination Station, watching the fleet assemble. Ships arrived every day from hundreds of worlds, sleek vessels from aquatic civilizations, massive dreadnoughts from heavy gravity planets, swarms of fighter craft from hive species that thought in units of thousands. It was the largest military fleet in galactic history. Admiral Jinwoo stood beside him. The admiral had arrived 2 weeks ago with Earth's contribution to the fleet. 200 ships. It looked like nothing compared to the thousands of council vessels surrounding them. But Tae-sung knew that Earth's technology was cutting edge. Human ships might be smaller, but they were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by people who had trained for actual combat. They are scared, Jinwoo said quietly. The council crews. They drill and practice, but most of them have never been in a real battle. They are about to learn what it means. Are our people ready? Tae-sung asked. As ready as anyone can be. They know this is dangerous. Casualty projections show we might lose 60% of our fleet in the first engagement. Jinwoo looked at the human ships, floating in formation, but they volunteered anyway. Every single crew member could have declined. None did. Captain Hana approached from behind. She had been coordinating with Council security forces, sharing human tactical knowledge. Ambassador, there is someone here to see you. Ambassador Kai from the Cooperative Union. Tae-sung turned. Kai was an old friend. His species had been attacked by pirates 30 years ago. Before joining the Council, Earth had sent help, one of humanity's first acts of interstellar cooperation. Kai's people had never forgotten. Tae-sung, Kai said warmly. His translator rendered his native language into perfect human speech. I wanted to speak with you before the battle begins. It is good to see you, Tae-sung replied. Your species pledged 12 ships. That means a great deal. 12 ships is all we have, Kai said with a slight smile. We are not a warrior people, but we remember when humanity helped us. We remember that sometimes the newest voice speaks the truest words. I wanted to tell you that regardless of what happens, you did the right thing. You reminded us all that civilization is not just about survival. It is about standing for something. They walked together along the observation deck. Below them, the fleet continued to grow. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of crew members, all of them preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. I am terrified, Tae-sung admitted. What if I am wrong? What if the command nodes do not exist? What if this assault fails and thousands die because I convinced the Council to take this risk? Then thousands die fighting instead of waiting to be consumed, Kai replied. There are worse deaths than dying for a cause you believe in. Your species understands this. You have fought each other for thousands of years over principles and beliefs. The Council species have forgotten what it means to value something more than survival. They reached the memorial wall. It had been built decades ago to honor Council defenders who had fallen in various conflicts. Thousands of names from hundreds of species were carved into the crystalline surface. Tae-sung ran his hand over the names. Soon there would be many more added. I keep thinking about the 40 billion people in those 12 systems, he said. If we succeed, we save them. If we fail, I gave them false hope before the end. Hope is never false, Kai said. Even if the outcome is not what we desire, the fact that someone tried matters. Those people know that the Council voted to fight for them. That means something. Back in the command center, Councillor Dae-hyun was coordinating with various species representatives. He had been against Tae-sung's plan initially, but once the vote passed, he had committed fully to making it work. Now he worked 20-hour days helping organize the most complex military operation in galactic history. The fleet is almost ready, Dae-hyun reported when Tae-sung entered. We have 5,700 ships, representatives from 400 species. Commander Sung-ho has finished training the ground assault teams. Sung-ho was Earth's special operations expert. He had been teaching Council forces human infantry tactics. Most Council species relied on technology and long-range combat. The idea of boarding enemy vessels or fighting on the ground was foreign to them. Sung-ho had been patient, but Tae-sung knew the commander was frustrated with how slowly the Council soldiers learned. How are the assault teams? Tae-sung asked. They will do their job, Sung-ho said. He was a man of few words. They are not as good as human Marines, but they are brave. That counts for a lot. Captain Soo-jin entered the room. She commanded the battleship Indomitable, one of Earth's most powerful vessels. Her ship had been assigned to lead the assault on the primary Devourer Command Nexus. It was the most dangerous mission in the entire operation. Sir, Su Jin said to Admiral Jin Woo, the crew is ready. We have run the simulations 100 times. We know the risks. Your ship has a 40% chance of survival, Jin Woo said bluntly. Those are not good odds. No, sir. But someone has to go first. Someone has to show the Council species that humans do not just talk about courage. We live it. She looked at Taesung. With respect, Ambassador, you started this with a speech. We will finish it with action. The next day, the final briefing took place. Taesung stood before the assembled commanders. Humans, aliens, beings of every size, shape, and origin. They all looked at him, waiting for final words before battle. I will not lie to you, Taesung said. This will be bloody. Many of you will not return. The Devourers have never been beaten in a major engagement. We are attempting something that has never been done before. He paused, looking at each commander in turn. But I believe in this plan. I believe we can win, not because we are stronger than the Devourers, not because we have better technology. We can win because we are fighting for something real. We are fighting for those 40 billion people who are going to be abandoned. We are fighting to prove that the Council does not surrender. We are fighting because some things matter more than our individual survival. War Leader Krath stood up, his massive form dwarfing everyone around him. The humans have reminded us of something we forgot. Honor, courage, the willingness to face death for others. My warriors are proud to fight beside them. Other commanders stood as well. One by one, they pledged their commitment, not just to the mission, but to each other. Taesung watched as centuries of species differences melted away in the face of a common cause. That night, Taesung could not sleep. He sat in his quarters looking at reports from Dr. Yuna. She had analyzed every piece of data available about the Devourer command nodes. Her confidence was high that they existed and could be destroyed. But confidence was not certainty. Captain Hana found him there, staring at the reports. Ambassador, you should rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. I keep thinking about all the things that could go wrong, he said. The Devourers might adapt faster than we expect. The command nodes might be better defended. The fleet might not hold together under pressure. Any of 100 variables could cause this to fail. Or any of 100 variables could lead to success, Hana replied. She sat down beside him. You know what I learned in the resource wars? The side that wins is not always the one with the best plan. It is the one that refuses to give up. We have that. The Council species are finally willing to fight. That is already a victory. Even if we all die achieving it, Taesung asked. Even then, Hana said firmly, because others will remember. They will know that when faced with extinction, the Council chose to fight back. That memory will inspire future resistance. Victories are not always measured in survival. Taesung looked at his security chief and friend. She had been with him through everything. First contact, Council membership, 3 years of Devourer attacks, now this. Thank you, Hana. For what? For believing in this. For believing in me, she smiled. Someone has to keep you from drowning in self-doubt. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we show the galaxy what humans are made of. As she left, Taesung turned back to the window. Outside, the fleet hung in space like a constellation of steel and light. Tomorrow they would jump to the target systems. Tomorrow they would face the Devourers. Tomorrow everything would change. He whispered a prayer to gods he was not sure he believed in. A prayer for the crew members who would die. A prayer for the people they were trying to save. A prayer for the courage to see this through to whatever end awaited them. The stars offered no answer, but somehow that was fitting. Humanity had always found its own answers. Tomorrow would be no different. The Council chamber had not been this full in decades. Every member species had sent their representatives. Even species that usually sent proxies or virtual avatars had dispatched physical delegates. Word had spread quickly that the human ambassador was invoking the right of challenge, and curiosity had drawn them all. Taesung stood in the supplicant circle at the chamber's center. It was a position designed to make the speaker feel small and vulnerable, surrounded by hundreds of delegates looking down from tiered seating. He could feel their eyes on him. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed. A few looked hostile. High Chancellor Vexthor stood at his podium, his multiple eyes fixed on Taesung. Ambassador Taesung of Earth, you have invoked the right of challenge, an ancient provision of Council law. This is unprecedented in modern times. Are you certain you wish to proceed? I am certain, Taesung said. His voice was steady, amplified by the chamber's acoustics to reach every corner. Then state your challenge. Explain to this council why you believe our chosen path leads to civilizational suicide. Tae-sung took a breath. He had rehearsed this speech 100 times with Hana and Dae-hyun. Every word had been carefully chosen, but now, standing here with the fate of billions hanging on his ability to persuade, he felt the weight of it all. Honored council members, he began, I stand before you as a representative of humanity, the youngest species in this chamber. We have been members of this great assembly for only 15 years. In that time, we have tried to learn from your wisdom, to understand your ways, to prove ourselves worthy of standing among civilizations that have explored the stars for millions of years. He paused, letting his words settle. Some of the hostile expressions had softened slightly. Flattery was not his goal, but respect was necessary. But today I must speak a truth that may offend. I must challenge not just a decision, but a way of thinking that has dominated this council for centuries. Because I believe that your greatest strength has become your greatest weakness. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Counselor Mira floated forward slightly, her crystalline form pulsing with curiosity. You have all achieved something remarkable. Tae-sung continued. You have built civilizations that last millions of years. You have eliminated poverty, disease, war. You have turned your worlds into paradises. This is an achievement that humanity can only dream of matching. But in achieving this peace, you have forgotten something essential. You have forgotten how to fight for it. We are fighting, a counselor called out. We have been fighting the Devourers for 3 years. No, Tae-sung said firmly. You have been defending. There is a difference. Defense is about holding what you have. Fighting is about taking ground, destroying the enemy's ability to threaten you, forcing victory through action rather than reaction. War leader Krath stood up. He was massive, over 3 meters tall, covered in scales that looked like natural armor. His species was one of the few militaristic races on the council. The human speaks truth. We have advocated for offensive operations since the beginning, but we have been overruled at every turn. Because offensive operations are costly, another counselor argued, we would lose thousands of ships. And how many ships have you lost defending? Tae-sung asked. How many systems have been consumed while you retreated? The Devourers are not negotiating. They are not stopping. Every time you draw a new defensive line, they cross it. Every time you abandon territory, they follow. This is not strategy. This is slow surrender. He activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images appeared, drawn from Earth's military archives. Ancient battles, modern conflicts, strategic analyses. My species has a violent history, Tae-sung said. We are not proud of it. We came to the stars hoping to leave that history behind, but that history taught us lessons. One of those lessons is this. Predators do not stop when prey runs. They chase, they hunt. They follow weakness. The only way to stop a predator is to make it afraid of you. The Devourers do not feel fear, Priestess Sul said. Her species, the Ethereal Communion, were pacifists who had not waged war in over 1 million years. They are a hive mind. They have no emotions. Then we make them understand pain, Tae-sung replied. If they cannot fear, they can learn that attacking us costs more than it gains. Dr. Yuna, our xenobiologist, has analyzed every engagement between Council forces and the Devourers. She has found something important. The Devourers are not truly decentralized. They have command nodes, central points that coordinate their swarms. The holographic display shifted, showing Yuna's research, patterns of Devourer attacks, coordination that should not exist in a purely distributed hive mind, evidence of strategic planning. These command nodes are their weakness, Tae-sung said. If we target them, if we destroy their ability to coordinate, we can turn this war around. But it requires offensive action. It requires risk. It requires accepting casualties in exchange for victory. And if you are wrong, High Chancellor Vexthor asked, if these nodes do not exist or cannot be destroyed, you would waste thousands of ships and millions of lives on a theory. If I am wrong, we lose ships fighting, Tae-sung said. But you have already decided to lose 12 systems without fighting. 40 billion people will die either way. The difference is that my plan offers hope. Your plan offers only managed extinction. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some were angry at Tae-sung's harsh words. Others were considering his points. A few were already convinced. Tae-sung raised his voice over the chaos. I know what you think of humanity. We are young. We are violent. We are primitive. All of this is true. But we remember what you have forgotten. We remember that some threats cannot be negotiated with. They cannot be appeased. They cannot be fled from. Sometimes the only path to peace runs through war. This is madness, Priestess Sul said. Violence only breeds more violence. If we embrace warfare, we become no better than the devourers. If we do not embrace warfare now, we will not exist to worry about what we become, Tae-sung replied. I am not asking you to love war. I am asking you to use it as a tool. The way a surgeon uses a knife, not from cruelty but from necessity. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. I propose this. A concentrated assault on the Devourer command nodes. A multi-species fleet coordinated and determined. We hit them where they are weak, not where they are strong. We take the offensive. We show them that the Council is not prey to be consumed, but a threat to be feared. And who would lead this assault? Vexthor asked. Which species would risk their fleet on this untested strategy? Tae-sung felt the moment arrive. This was the commitment that would either inspire the Council or condemn humanity. Earth volunteers. We will commit our entire deep space fleet to the first wave. 200 ships. Every combat-capable vessel we have. The chamber went silent. Even the critics looked stunned. For a young species like humanity, committing the entire fleet was not just risky. It was potentially suicidal. You would risk your entire military? Counselor Mira asked softly. 40 billion people are about to die because this council voted to abandon them, Tae-sung said. If humanity's fleet can change that, if our sacrifice can inspire others to fight instead of flee, then yes. We will risk everything, because some things are worth fighting for. Some principles matter more than safety, and the idea that no sentient being should be abandoned to certain death while others watch and do nothing, that is a principle worth dying for. War leader Krath let out a roar that shook the chamber. The humans shame us all. They are barely a spacefaring species, and they have more courage than civilizations a million years old. I pledge the warriors of my people to this assault. Let the galaxy see what happens when we stop running. Other voices joined in. Not all, not even most, but enough. Representatives from dozens of species stood pledging support. Some offered ships. Others offered intelligence or supplies. A few species known for pacifism offered logistical support, unable to fight but unwilling to stand aside any longer. High Chancellor Vexthor raised his hands for silence. When the chamber quieted, he looked at Tae-sung with something that might have been respect. A vote must be taken. Do we accept the human proposal for offensive operations against Devourer command nodes? All in favor, make your species known. Lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Blue lights for yes votes. Red for no. Amber for abstention. Tae-sung watched them appear, his heart pounding. Blue. Red. Amber. Blue. Blue. Red. The colors mixed together until he could not track individual votes anymore. Finally, Vexthor announced the result. 403 species vote in favor. 244 species vote against. The motion passes. The Council authorizes offensive military operations against the Devourers. He paused, his mandibles clicking. May the stars forgive us if we are wrong. The human delegation quarters were modest compared to the grand chambers occupied by older Council species. 3 rooms carved into the station's outer ring, with windows that looked out at the stars. Tae-sung had never minded the simplicity. It reminded him that humanity was still new here, still proving itself worthy of respect. Admiral Jinwoo's face appeared on the holographic display. Even across the vast distance between the Council station and Earth, the connection was clear. The Admiral looked tired. The weight of commanding Earth's entire deep space fleet showed in the lines around his eyes. Ambassador, Jinwoo said. I heard about the vote. 40 billion people. They are just going to leave them, Tae-sung said. Run away and hope the Devourers stop at the new borders. Will they? Stop, I mean. No, Tae-sung said flatly. Predators do not stop when prey runs. They chase. The Council species have forgotten this. They evolved past major wars so long ago that they do not understand this basic truth anymore. Counselor Dai-hyun entered the room, still wearing his formal council robes. He was older than Tae-sung. a career diplomat who had spent 40 years preparing humanity for first contact and council membership. His face was grave. "I know what you are thinking," Daehyun said, "and I am telling you now, do not do it." "You do not even know what I am planning," Taesung replied. "Yes, I do. You want to challenge the council decision. You want humanity to propose an alternative strategy. You want to fight instead of retreat." Daehyun sat down heavily. "It will be political suicide. We have only been council members for 15 years. We are still seen as violent primitives by many species. If we advocate for war, we will confirm every prejudice they have about us." Admiral Jinwoo spoke from the hologram. "Maybe they need violent primitives right now." Taesung walked to the window. Outside he could see council ships docked at the station. Hundreds of different designs representing hundreds of different worlds. Such diversity. Such potential. All of it paralyzed by fear and ancient thinking. "Tell me about the Devourers," he said to Jinwoo. "What has Earth's intelligence learned?" "They are a hive mind species," the Admiral replied. "But not in the way most people think. They are not truly decentralized. Dr. Yuna has been studying every piece of data we can gather. She believes there is a command structure, central nodes that coordinate the swarms. So they have weak points," Taesung said, "theoretically. But no one has gotten close enough to confirm. Every fleet that has tried to push forward has been destroyed. The council strategy has been purely defensive for 2 years. Captain Hana had been standing guard at the door. Now she spoke up. "In the resource wars, we learned something important. Defense alone never wins. You can only lose slowly." Taesung nodded. He remembered those terrible years. Humanity fighting itself over the last remaining resources of a damaged Earth. Every nation building walls, defending borders, trying to hold what they had. Millions died before people realized that survival required working together and taking risks. "The council species do not understand total war," Taesung said slowly. "Most of them achieved space travel through cooperation and gradual progress. They built their civilizations over millions of years of peace. War is something they read about in ancient history. It is not real to them anymore." "And humans?" Daehyun asked quietly. "We remember," Hana said. "Every generation of humanity has known war. We are barely 300 years past our last global conflict. We know what it costs. We know how it is fought. We know that sometimes the only way to peace is through violence." Admiral Jinwoo leaned forward in the hologram. "If you are serious about this, I need to know. Earth's fleet is ready. We have 200 ships capable of deep space combat. It is not large by council standards, but our technology is cutting edge. Our crews are trained for actual combat, not just patrol duty." 200 ships, Taesung repeated, "against an enemy that has destroyed fleets 10 times that size." "Numbers are not everything," Jinwoo replied. "The Devourers are used to fighting enemies who follow predictable patterns. Council species use textbook tactics that have not changed in centuries. Human warfare is messy, unpredictable, nasty. We cheat, we use psychology. We hit where we are not expected. It might give us an edge." Daehyun stood up, his face troubled. "Even if you could convince the council to try an offensive strategy, even if you could prove the Devourers can be defeated, the cost would be enormous. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, and if it fails, humanity will be blamed. We could be expelled from the council. Earth could be isolated, left to fend for itself when the Devourers eventually reach our space. And if we do nothing," Taesung turned to face him, 40 billion people die in the next few months. Then the Devourers push past the new borders and another 100 billion die. Where does it end? How many people have to be sacrificed before the council decides to actually fight?" The room fell silent. Outside, a massive transport ship was departing, probably heading to one of the doomed systems to evacuate whoever it could carry. Taesung watched it go and thought about all the people who would never get aboard such ships. Children who would never grow up. Families that would be torn apart. Entire worlds that would fall into darkness. Dr. Yuna's face suddenly appeared on another hologram. She was young, barely 30, but already recognized as one of humanity's leading xenobiologists. Her hair was disheveled and she looked like she had not slept in days. "Ambassador, I have been monitoring the council channels. I heard about the vote. Please tell me you are not going to just accept this." "I am considering options," Taesung said carefully. "I have data," Yuna said quickly. "Real data about Devourer command structures. If someone would actually listen and be willing to take risks, we could target their coordination nodes. Cutting off the head might not kill the body, but it would definitely cripple it. We could turn this war around. How certain are you? Daehyun asked. 70%. Maybe 80. I need more samples to be sure, but the pattern is clear. She pulled up complex diagrams. The Council thinks the Devourers are like a swarm of insects, each unit acting independently, but I have analyzed their attack patterns across 40 different engagements. There is coordination. There is planning. That means there is command, and anything that can be commanded can be disrupted. Tae-sung made his decision. He had been moving toward it since leaving the Council chamber, but now it crystallized into certainty. Daehyun was right that this would be risky. Jinwoo was right that it would be costly. But doing nothing would be worse than either risk or cost. There is an old provision in Council law, he said, the right of challenge. Any member species can invoke it to prevent what they consider civilizational suicide. It forces an emergency session where alternative proposals must be heard. Daehyun's eyes widened. That provision is 3,000 years old. No one has used it in living memory. Then it is time to remind them it exists, Tae-sung said. Admiral, prepare the fleet for deployment. I do not know if I can convince the Council, but if I do, I need to know Earth is ready. We will be ready, Jinwoo promised. This is insane, Daehyun said, but his voice lacked conviction. Probably, Tae-sung agreed. But staying sane while everyone else runs away is not a virtue. Captain Hana, start preparing a presentation. I want every piece of data Dr. Yuna has. I want historical examples from human warfare. I want casualty projections, strategic analyses, everything. We have one chance to change the Council's mind. One chance to save 40 billion people, Yuna added softly. Tae-sung looked at each of them in turn. His team, his people, representatives of a species that had clawed its way up from a damaged planet through determination and refusal to give up. Maybe the Council was right to see humans as violent and primitive, but maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed right now. The crystalline walls of the Council chamber reflected light from 1,000 different suns. Ambassador Tae-sung stood in the entrance corridor, watching through the transparent walls as representatives from hundreds of worlds argued inside. Their voices created a cacophony that even the translation devices struggled to parse into coherent meaning. Tae-sung had received the emergency summons 3 hours ago. The message was simple and direct. His presence was required immediately before the full Galactic Council. No explanation was given, no context was provided. After 15 years of humanity's membership in this grand assembly, he had learned that such urgency usually meant something terrible had happened. Captain Hana walked beside him, her hand resting on the plasma weapon at her hip. She was his security chief, and had served with him since Earth had first made contact with the Council. Her eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, looking for threats that probably did not exist in this place of diplomacy. They look scared, Hana said quietly, gesturing toward the chamber ahead. She was right. Tae-sung could see it in the way the various aliens moved. The insectoid representatives from the Antares system clustered together, their antennae twitching nervously. The floating gas beings from the nebula colonies pulsed with colors that his briefing materials had taught him, meant anxiety. Even the massive rock-like creatures from the heavy gravity worlds seemed to huddle closer to the walls than usual. The doors to the main chamber opened. High Chancellor Vexthor stood at the central podium, his multiple eyes scanning the assembled representatives. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His exoskeleton bore the scars of centuries of service to the Council. Ambassador Tae-sung of Earth, Vexthor's voice boomed through the chamber. The Council thanks you for your swift attendance. Please approach. Tae-sung walked forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. Some of these beings were ancient beyond human comprehension. Their civilizations had been exploring the stars when humanity still lived in caves. Yet today, they all looked at him with something that resembled hope, or perhaps desperation. 3 years ago, Vexthor began, the Devourers emerged from the dark space beyond the galactic rim. We have fought them. We have studied them. We have tried to negotiate with them. Nothing has succeeded. They consume everything in their path. Entire star systems have been stripped of all organic matter. 47 civilizations have been completely destroyed. The chamber fell silent. Tae-sung had known the situation was bad, but the Council had kept the full details classified. Earth's military intelligence had suspected the truth, but Hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that reports never could. Today, Vexthor continued, we face a choice. The Devourers advance toward the core systems. Our defensive lines have failed. Our fleets cannot hold them. The Council has debated for 6 planetary rotations. We have reached a decision. Councillor Mira floated forward. She belonged to the Lumina species, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline forms. Her species was known for their pacifism and their wisdom. She had been one of humanity's strongest supporters when Earth had first applied for Council membership. We must be practical, Mira said, her voice like wind chimes. We cannot save everyone. The Devourers move too quickly. Their numbers are too great. Therefore, the Council has voted to implement the Preservation Protocol. We will evacuate the core systems. We will establish new defensive lines. We will cede territory to buy time. Taesung felt his stomach tighten. Cede territory? You mean abandoned systems? 12 star systems, another counselor said. This one was reptilian, covered in blue scales. We will evacuate who we can, but there is insufficient time to save all inhabitants. The Devourers will have those systems. We will fortify behind the new borders. It is the only logical choice. How many people live in those 12 systems? Taesung asked. The chamber went quiet. Vexthor's mandibles clicked together, a sign of discomfort in his species. Approximately 40 billion sentient beings. We estimate we can evacuate 12% before the Devourers arrive. 40 billion people. Taesung's mind struggled with the number. That was 5 times the population of Earth. And the Council was simply going to abandon them, leave them to be consumed by an enemy that showed no mercy, took no prisoners, left nothing behind but lifeless rocks. We understand this is difficult, Mira said, floating closer to Taesung. But we must think of the greater good. If we commit our forces to defending those systems, we risk losing everything. The Devourers are too strong. We have lost every major engagement. Our fleets are being destroyed. This is not surrender. This is survival. The vote has been taken, Vexthor announced. 312 species voted in favor of the Preservation Protocol. 247 voted against. 88 abstained. The motion passes. We will begin immediate implementation. Taesung stood frozen. He looked around the chamber at all these advanced species, these ancient civilizations, these beings who had mastered technologies that Earth could barely understand, and they were choosing to run, to abandon billions of people to certain death, to draw a line and say that some lives mattered more than others. Captain Hana touched his arm gently. Ambassador, we should return to the human delegation quarters. He nodded slowly, unable to trust his voice. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of the viewing screens that lined the chamber walls. They showed maps of the galaxy. The 12 doomed systems were highlighted in red. He could see the names of planets, the population counts, the desperate evacuation schedules that would save so few. Walking back through the corridors, Taesung felt a rage building inside him that he had not experienced in decades. He had been a soldier once before becoming a diplomat. He had fought in Earth's resource wars. He had seen humanity at its worst, killing each other over water and arable land. He had dedicated his life to diplomacy because he believed there was a better way than violence. But this was not wisdom. This was cowardice dressed up as pragmatism. Hana, he said quietly as they entered the human delegation quarters. Get me Admiral Jinwoo on a secure channel. And find Counselor Daehyun. We need to talk, sir. Hana looked at him with concern. The Council just made a terrible mistake, Taesung said. And I'm going to do something about it. In the crystalline chamber behind them, the Council continued their discussions about evacuation logistics and defensive positions. None of them noticed the human ambassador leaving. None of them suspected that the newest and youngest member of their ancient assembly was about to challenge everything they thought they knew about war and survival.